Well, hello everyone. Is my voice audible? Uh, can anyone just ping me and let me know if my voice is audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, all right. Well, first of all, a very good morning. Assalamu alaikum for everyone in Dubai. Uh, Thanks for joining this session. And the topic of today's discussion is Security Automation 101, right? So, which is the most important topic right now. You might be hearing a lot about automation, about AI and stuff, right? So, in today's discussion, I'm going to give you some insights on how to use automation in your day-to-day security activities, right? And mostly targeted towards your SOC, your Security Operations Center day-to-day incident response, right? So I'm gonna give you some high-level 10,000 feet overview on how you can automate stuff and what are the tools you can utilize to automate these things. So welcome once again to the session. So a brief introduction about me. My name is Prashant Baliga. I'm currently a cybersecurity manager at Palo Alto Networks in Singapore. Palo Alto Networks is a leading cybersecurity company, and I've been into this organization for the past 4 years almost. And I've been to the security automation sector for the last 8 years. I'm a CISSP certified and a CCSK certified engineer who's been working extensively automating stuff, right? Mostly towards the security, what do you say, the security operations center. So that's a brief introduction about me, and I've always been dealing with providing some mentorship and talk in the security communities. Have been providing some talks with the various security communities like OASP, NUL in India, as well as a few other chapters in Europe as well. So let this discussion be quite interactive. I love interaction. So if you have any queries, you can feel free to raise concerns, or you can definitely unmute yourself and you can ask me the queries, and I'll be happy to interact on those queries as well. Okay, all right then. So getting straight away into the topic, right? I believe many of you guys have already been working on in the SOC, right, as an analyst or a SOC manager or a threat hunter, right? So if you ask me about the current security operations center, you have ample amount of tools available. If you'd ask me with the major tools being SIM, your firewalls, your DLP, data loss protection, your IDS, IPS, sandboxing like your Cuckoo sandbox, Joy sandbox, even SIM when I say your Splunk or QRadar firewalls being your checkpoint, Palo Alto firewalls, a lot of tools, right? Even IAM, for example, you might be using Okta or IBM sort of a tools. Email security like Proofpoint. You have your main important tools like your EDR and XDR these days, right? Or even the threat intel like VirusTotal or many other MISP tools, and even a lot of cloud security tools these days like CFP, what do you call that? Like your Zscaler or your Palo Alto or PingSafe, right? There are a lot of tools available, and this is just a high-level overview of the tools you're using. There can be even more tools, right? So this is the current setup, right? So why do we need automation here, if you might ask? What is the need of it? Well, there are a lot of challenges the organizations are facing today. And if I have to speak about the top 6 challenges, right, I can say that an overwhelming number of security alerts, right? You have a lot of tools available, and each of these tools generate their own amount of security alerts. As a result, it becomes insanely tough to handle all these tools. You might end up missing on a lot of alerts, right? So there's an increased probability of missing on an alert. And if you miss on any alert, it can possibly result in a data breach, which you're not allowed to happen, right? So in this case, that's a major challenge. Also, slow response due to standardized response capabilities. In a SOC center, you have multiple SOC analysts, but each of them have got their own capabilities, their own way of handling a alert, right? Own way of handling an incident. So there's no standardized template or a process which you can rely on. Based on that, even that is a challenge for the organization. Also, the wasting time and resources due to manual and inefficient processes, right? So when I say wasting a lot of time here is doing the same mundane repeated activities, which can actually be automated. Rather than that, we are wasting a lot of time in doing the copy paste work, checking into some third party websites, getting the score and all those activities, right? Which can possibly be automated here. And the difficulty finding enough resources, which is the mainstream problem since like many years, right? We are not finding the right amount of security analysts with the right skill set. And even if you find them, training will take a lot of time as well, right? So instead of that, also you can use the automation here. And finally, the lack or visibility across the tools or the data sets. When I say the visibility, right? So you don't have any sort of a centralized platform. Every tool behaves in its own way. So you don't have like any sort of like a visibility across all these tools. You have like 100 consoles available, which you need to keep monitoring. So all these actually ended up being the challenge for an organization. And finally, I think we all came together, the security industry thought about like we need a centralized platform which can handle all these automations, right? All these sort of issues which they're facing. And that led to the need of automation. As a result, there was a tool which got introduced into the market. It was called as a SOR. When I say SOR, it's basically your security orchestration, automation, and response. So three pillars here: orchestration, automation, and response. When I speak about orchestration, the first and the foremost thing is all about it's like the your heart of your system, right? Or you call it as like your engine. So what it does is basically it tries to aggregate all your security alerts and tools coming from your third-party tools. We try to integrate this SOAR platform with all the other third-party tools, be it your SIM, your EDR, XDRs, or all the tools which I mentioned, right? It has got this capability to go and integrate with those tools using the REST APIs or the mechanisms, mostly in the API format, wherein you are able to pull in a lot of alerts from these tools, which is getting generated. And once we do those orchestration, you have the automation mechanism. When I say the automation mechanism, right, it's basically to perform any sort of activity, right? Let's say you get an IOC, your indicators of compromise. You need to copy paste it and put it in like VirusTotal and get the score out of it. Well, that can now be automated using the commands which is available when you already integrate your third-party tools. You can get these commands already available out of the box. Use those commands, use it in your automation. As in, like you want to send an email, you can do that. You wanna basically enrich these indicators, you can do that. So all those automated activities, right? Even if you want to, what do you say? You want to open a ticket, even that is possible using automation in the SOAR platform. And finally, the third part is basically the response mechanism, right? So far, we have seen the most of the tools in the SOC are mostly the detection tools, right? And we have to manually go and remediate this. So when I say of the response, right, SOAR is capable of the major activity of SOAR is all about the response mechanism. So here you have something called as playbooks, where you have an automated playbook mechanism wherein whenever you have a certain type of alert, if you develop a playbook for that, you can automatically respond to the queries in the form of playbooks. Well, you have the out-of-the-box playbooks, which most of the SOAR vendors do provide. Apart from that, you can develop your own playbooks as a result based on your customized alerts or threats, right? You can have your playbooks, which will go and remediate those alerts. So as a result, I would say SOAR is one such automation tool where you can have all the three elements, which is your orchestration, like I said, which is going to get integrated with your various third-party tools, your automation, your frequent activities, the manual activities which you perform in your day-to-day routine, right? It can be automated. And finally, the response mechanism as well, which is through your playbooks. So these three pillars constitute what we call it as a SOAR platform. Well, now if I have to give you a block diagram of SOAR, right? In the left-hand side, you can see that the SOAR goes and interacts with your network, your threat intel, your mobile platforms, endpoints, any available tool in the market, right? It can actually go and connect to those. That's what about the orchestration piece. And on the right-hand side, you can see that it connects with your tools like ArcSight, QRadar, or you want to see your endpoint tools like Symantec, BigFire, Carbon Black, or your EDR, XDR tools, right? Like your CrowdStrike. Also, it can basically go and connect with your ITSM tools like ServiceNow, your Jira, or your forensic tools, or even your IAM tools, your Active Directory, your email production tools, or even your email, right? Email like your G Suite or your Outlook, for example. And even it can even connect to your Nessus, which is your threat vulnerability management tools, your OpenDNS, or basically any tool which has got an API access. You can basically go and integrate those things. And finally, you can see that you can also perform the manual activities here as well. What we would say is have a semi-automated approach using these tools. You can basically, and using the SOAR platform, you can finally remediate these alerts, which is being generated by all these third-party applications. So this is the high-level overview of SOAR. And now if I ask you, like, if you'd ask me, like, what is the life cycle using the SOAR? So all your third-party tools, like your SIM, kind of sends you some sort of a detection alert, right? Which has been like an incident has been generated. Now, when you basically try to remediate it, even in your manual effort, what you try to do is you try to have a template, as in like what are the steps required to remediate an incident. Similarly, you try to do the same thing in your SOT. Initial effort is all about planning. When you have get an incident, what is the type of incident, right? Defining the incident. Is it a malware incident? Is it a phishing incident, a ransomware, or any different type of network security incident, right? So you initially define the incident, and once you get the incident defined, what you try to do is you try to do the classification and mapping. What do you say when you say ask me about classification and mapping? Classification is all about classifying it into a specific incident type. When I say about integrating different tools, right? So it is all through API, and the API, when you make a request to that to fetch the incidents into your SOT platform, it gives you the result in the format of JSON most likely. So what we try to do is you have got a key value pairs. Based on those key value pairs, you try to map it into the SOT platform using classification and mapping. Like I said, the classification is mostly to define what type of incident it is, and mapping is mostly about mapping the specific your raw events, what you have received, into the different SOR events, right? The basically, if you get an IP address in your raw event, you try to map it as an IP address or source IP, destination IP, the protocols in your SOR platform, so that you can define more rules which can later be utilized while running the playbook. And once you get that, you have something called as a pre-processing rule, which is very important. Let's say, for example, you get a phishing alert. Let's say hundreds of people in your organization have got a phishing alert, but there is a high possibility that all these phishing alert will be linked to a parent alert, right? Rather than having 100 different unique incidents, where we have to work 100 times on these incidents, rather try to see if there's some sort of a matching event or a matching alert, and then you try to link it with a parent alert. And that is what we try to do in the pre-processing rule. We can basically bring down hundreds of alerts into one or two unique incidents, which basically minimizes your effort into investigating all these numerous alerts. And finally, you define those specific unique incidents as a XOR, or what do you call this, a SOR incident, into the platform. And finally, based on the incident type, you run a specific playbook which is already been automated into the platform. You just kind of connect it. And the moment you get these kind of incidents in your SOR platform, automatically the playbook will run. Instead of the analyst running these playbooks, the system itself will run these automated playbooks, will remediate your incident. And finally, the post-processing. What is a post-processing? It's basically once you have remediated the incident and once you have completed your investigation, if you want to do any sort of a post-mortem of that incident, let's say you want to close a ticket in your service now, you want to send an email about the reports, right? Or any such sort of like you want to close the incident in your SIM after this. All those things can be done through your post-processing. So this is the entire life cycle of a SOC platform, starting from the planning, defining, mapping, pre-processing till the post-processing, right? This is how the entire life cycle is all about. And finally, if I have to speak about the use cases, right? You can basically automate your entire SOC. I would say semi-automated, if not the complete automation. But due to the paucity of the time, I'm going to go through the 5 top use cases. Let's say the phishing, which is still a major threat, right, for all the organization. Then you have your malware investigation. You have your zero-day threats, which is one of the most critical threats, right? And handling insider threats, which is the most interesting one. How do we handle the ones who are already the threats inside your organization? And finally, I would say even speak a bit about integrating your LLM models, right? Your Chat GPT, for example, with your SOR platform. Let's get straight away into it. So first and foremost is your phishing alert. Well, we have a scenario here. For example, the attacker tries to, send a compromised email system, right? He compromises a partner's email system, and then he tries to send a phishing email to some EVP of the bank. Let's say the bank EVP thinks that it is a legitimate email coming from the partner, and he tries to open it. But luckily, we have something called as the email protection tools. Two things can happen. One is the EVP of this bank can flag it as an phishing email. If not, the email protection tools or other detection tools will flag it as a phishing event. In these cases, what used to happen was there's numerous alerts being generated. Rather than manually going and investigating it, now what you can do is you have your SOT platform, which will basically go and ingest this email body and will extract the relevant IOCs out of it, which used to take a lot of time, can now automatically be extracted using the regex, which has been already been inbuilt inside the SOC platforms. It automatically checks for all your reputations. When you say checking the reputation, you will use your threat intelligence platform or threat enrichment platforms like your recorded future or MISP, or even your, what do you say, your virus total, right? And finally, in a automated fashion, if I have to showcase, it will be more like when you say playbooks, right? It will be more like a what do you say, a flowchart kind of an activity. Based on that, you get all sorts of relevant information here. Your IOCs, who is the sender, what is the net, your IP address, and all those events and alerts. And once you get that, the SOC analyst can basically go and just review the incident in the SOC platform, which the playbook has already executed. And then he tries to have the automated enforcement, also the manual intervention, right? He can basically go and enforce these actions, saying that if the IP address is malicious, go and block it in your SIEM or your EDR or your firewalls, right? All these things, which was previously done manually, can now be automatically handled using the playbooks in the SOC platform. As a result, we had done a survey wherein the analyst named Nori used to take almost 45 minutes on each phishing incident, now spends just 8 minutes. So basically, you are saving 35 minutes on each incident. And not just that, due to the pre-processing rule, we were able to reduce the incident 75% less. So as a result, this is like a huge reduction in the time as well as dealing the incident. And now the analyst can look into something more important and can focus on the threat hunting process, right? So again, if I have to speak about what we actually did, was the first step being extracting the relevant URLs, hashes, domains from the attachments and the email body and headers. Basically, first one is always about your extraction. And the second step in the SOC platform is about enrichment. Once you get all these IOCs, how do we enrich it and get the relevant reputation score for these? And once we do that, we also try to see if there is any files attached to this. Let's say there's a PDF document or any sort of an attachment, right? We try to send it to a sandbox environment, which is again a third-party tool which will be integrated. Let's say your Cuckoo sandbox or Joey sandbox, any sandbox environment, right? Or Cisco ThreadGrid, for example. You try to send it to that and try to get the reputation of those files and simulate it, whether it's a malicious file or non-malicious file. And finally, you also look into the fourth step, which is you try to check if the email body, content, and the headers, right? If there's anything malicious, if you can figure it out, even that can be automated. Finally, based on all these scores and reputation, you try to see if it is a malicious spam or it's a false positive, right? Based on this reputation score, you can also set an algorithm there saying that, okay, if it is more than 6, repetition is more than 6 or 7, like if it is highly malicious, go and block it, respond to the user, right? You can block it, and you can also send to the user that you have clicked on the phishing email, to be careful about it. And you can also send email to the manager of the team who had basically clicked on the phishing emails. So this entire process, like I said, used to happen manually, and most of us still do it manually, right? If you don't have the automated processes. So now using the SOC platform, you can basically minimize the time and also the number of alerts. Finally, second one being the automated malware analysis. Still a major headache for all the organizations to handle the malware incidents, right? So in this case, we tried to use the SOC platform and did the analysis. We could see that the basically used to take 90 minutes and into basically, if you calculate 350 incidents per month. But now after fully getting automated it, basically the analyst is getting 13 days back in a month, right? That's like a huge number. Rather than doing it all manually, now they're using the completely automated process. Now, if you'd ask me how this works, right? So again, here in this case, let's say your third-party tool, your SIM or your any sort of EDR, right, will generate some sort of alert having suspicious files or the URL, and an incident is created. Now it will be injected into your SOC platform, and there'll be a work plan. When I say about the work plan, is basically your playbooks, which will start investigating all these sort of alerts, getting your enrichment and execution of it. And it will also get connected with your third-party sandboxing tool. It will run your file detonation, also the URL detonation and the file hashing, right? It will query for all these things. And inside your sandbox, again, it will be a third-party tool. All your reputation analysis, static analysis, and dynamic analysis would take place. And the sandbox within a couple of minutes will give you the relevant reputation for it, along with enrichment using your threat intelligence and the virus total, for example. And finally, once you get those, again, you have your response playbooks, response mechanism, right? Earlier, what we did was investigating it, and now we are doing the response mechanism. Once we know that the relevant score is malicious, what we try to do is we go and try to quarantine those machines or isolate these machines where the the file has been executed, right? And also finally the analysis and reporting of it. So these entire process used to take a lot of time. Now using the SOC platform and the automation mechanisms, you can basically minimize a lot of time and also reduce any sort of false positives or even the human error, right? All these things can be completely automated. So this is another use case where you can basically utilize it. And now if you ask me like the workflow or the playbook, right? What exactly happens is whenever there's a third-party tool which generates some sort of a trigger, here when I say playbook triggered is your third-party tool raising some sort of an alert. Once the alert is generated, what the playbook tries to do is it tries to automatically assign this to an analyst who is the best possible person to review these incidents. Once the analyst starts reviewing it, automatically the playbook will start running as well, where it will try to fetch all the relevant information from the alert through your SIM, trying to get all the logs. And finally, in the same again, it tries to do some sort of like a file detonation, right? It tries to do this detonation in your Microsoft Defender, your CrowdStrike, or your other XDR platforms. All these operations will finally fetch you the relevant reputation result, and you can respond back through the isolation or quarantining those files. So this is how a playbook basically runs. And the third use case, if I have to speak about, is basically responding to the zero-day threats. Zero-day threats is very tough to basically handle. In this case, what we need to do is we need to be very fast in our detection mechanism. We need to investigate it to the fast. Here, the time plays a crucial role. So what we try to do is if we kind of have some sort of a suspicious alert or some sort of a suspicion on any sort of an activity, right? The first thing we'll try to do is using the SOC platform, try to collect all sorts of IOCs as soon as possible. As the SOC platform usually got an ML engine inside it, it tries to check if specific these IOCs are already existent in your web or other third-party tools, right? It tries to check, retrieve these IOCs, and basically it tries to do the threat hunting, tries to check if there's any sort of a malicious hashes, and it also tries to check into your firewall logs and see if these hashes have been utilized somewhere else, right? And it also tries to see if there's any relevant spyware signatures or tries to link it with your previous incident. And once the threat hunting is done, the analyst is notified here. Here, again, you can't have completely automated approach. You need to have a semi-automated approach wherein the analyst will investigate all these values which has been thrown out of these SOC platform. It tries to see the results and then tries to make an intelligent decision whether he wants to block it, isolate it, or just make it as a false positive, right? And finally, he closes the playbook. Basically here again, what happens is initially we try to enrich it, and then we try to triage these indicators or the incident, and then finally the respond to it. So as this again needs to keep maturing day by day, right? You can't just rely on one process, one playbook. You need to keep updating the playbook as and when there is some sort of a news you get in the like basically in the security community. You keep trying to update your playbook as well. As a result, this is how you can prevent your zero-day threats. The third use case. And the fourth one, if I have to speak about, is an automated protection of insider threats. When I speak of insider threats, it's basically someone who has got a malicious intent towards the organization or who's on the notice period, or sometimes they try to do some sort of a malicious activity, right? Like send the important relevant file outside the organization on his, download it on his personal device or any such sort of a malicious intent, right? So we can use this tool called as Code Insider here, which will basically keep monitoring the employee and his activities, which also keeps notifying the HR and the relevant authorities, right? Like the manager, basically kind of monitoring the employee through any sort of like a Workday or your ADP tools. And finally, if there's some sort of a suspicious activity, again, your alert can be generated and injected into SOC platform. What the SOC platform can do is basically query all the relevant logs for the last 90 days or last 6 months, right? If there's any some sort of like a malicious or suspicious activity being detected by this employee, right? If in that case, if it has been detected, basically it flags it and sends an email to all his like relevant authorities like his VP or his manager to take necessary action so that the data is not exfiltrated outside. As a result, you can automatically prevent the insider threats as well. So this can be one more use case. Finally, I would like to mention about the chat GPT use case, right? We all have been using chat GPT, right? Like it's been like a boon for security, but at the same time can lead to a lot of false positives as well. as well as the leakage of the data. In this case, what you can do is if you feel that there's no proprietary data and you can utilize ChatGPT, definitely you try to do that. What you can do is you can, like I said, right, it can be useful for your reporting mechanism as well as for your remediation. For example, here, let's say we'll try to get the incident details from your SIM solution, right? Once you try to get it, you do your extraction and enrichment, which is already available in your SOC platforms, right? Once you do that, send the incident data or what do you call the to the chat GPT for analysis. So what you can do is all the most of the SOC platforms these days are already integrated with the OpenAI. Using your OpenAI, you just inject your OpenAI API keys, and OpenAI has definitely got some commands integrated with the SOC platform. What you try to do is you try to provide some sort of an input saying that, hey, give me a detailed analysis based on the analysis, impact analysis, and action or recommendations, right? And you can automate it based on the details which you get it from the previous steps here. So here, if you say that, hey, title, what is the title? The incident name, which you would have received from the incident, IOC's, IOC reputation, because you would have done the enrichment, right? And the type of machine compromised and all the relevant information, what you want. And finally, once you execute it, once you have an incident and you execute it, you get a nice response from it with all the relevant data available in this report, right? It does this analysis, it does this impact analysis, and finally, there's a security analysis, right? Incident analysis is being done using the chat GPT also. So it is this easy to now automatically integrate. As I said, it's all through API. So the moment you connect your third-party tools, you should be able to automate even the reporting, which is a biggest headache, right? So this is how you automate it. And finally, if I have to say about the response mechanism, right? And once, let's say, if we kind of detect if any indicator is a malicious one, we'll try to block it on the firewall and your XDR. At the same time, you want to send this email to the relevant parties, right? Your manager or your SOC manager or your customer, for example. Here again, you can do all these things like you can see this analysis, impact analysis, and action of recommendation. So automatically using the chat GPT, you can get all the necessary information where you just go and later customize the response by adding the relevant information from your incident, right? And even you can create a service now ticket using the chat GPT response. Based on these relevant information, you can basically go and create a service now ticket or your Jira ticket. And finally, close investigation with the chat GPT response. All these things can be sent in a documentation format for your email, or even while closing the ticket in your SIM, right? You can send this as a report for that. So this is how you use ChatGPT for both like investigation as well as for the remediation and reporting and analysis, right? So these are the top 5 use cases which I can definitely think about. Any queries so far? You guys have any queries or questions to ask before we go to the final segment? And if you'd ask me what are the skills needed to work on a SOC platform, it's mostly either Python or JavaScript. So definitely, if someone knows the basics of it, definitely you can automatically get started on this. And of course, you have ChatGPT these days, which will write the relevant code as well. So definitely make use of it. And finally, other use cases, if I have to say, it can be definitely be used for threat intelligence, your case management, right? You can make a SOC platform as your entire case management, replacing your ServiceNow or Jira. You can do your vulnerability management here. You can basically import all your Nessus reports or other vulnerability management reports, right? Uh, and basically, you can have your entire set of workflows imported in your SOC platform. And if someone has a query on what are the top SOC vendors, right? Definitely one is I have to be biased, Palo Alto Networks, Cortex XOR. You have other good SOC platforms like Simplify by Google, or even Splunk has got its own SOC platform like Phantom, and even there is 40 SOAR by Fortinet. So these are all pretty good tools to definitely get started. And apart from that SOAR, you can also use something called as an Ansible, where it can be used for your provisioning, cloud automation, and even a lot of security automation, right? Like your patch management, your change management. All those activities can also be performed using Ansible. Even Ansible has got its own playbooks, so which is available in the community vastly. So definitely you can utilize those. And finally, I would say that the benefits of security automation has been like 90% reduction in the remediation time. again, this has been tested and this has been analyzed in the major organizations, and 89% reduction in the time spent in the malware incidents, which is the major incident, right? And 75% fewer incidents requiring manual interaction, because the lesser manual interactions you have, the more accurate your incident management can become, right? But of course, we don't completely recommend you to go with the fully automated approach, but we would definitely recommend something like a 75-25 ratio, where 75% can be automated and 25% has to be through the manual review or intervention, right? And using this time, you can focus on the more relevant stuff like threat hunting, which needs more manual effort here. So this is it. So I hope you got some insights today on the SOC platform, or how you can utilize the SOC platform for your security automation. I'm open for any queries if you have. So happy to address. If you guys are keen, most of these platforms have already got a free community edition as well. You can get started using those community edition. You can get started in your laptop itself. You can utilize all the playbooks and automation scripts for your benefit. Any queries, anything? Happy to. And apart from SOAR as well, if you got any cybersecurity queries on the SOC, I'm open for that. All right. If there's nothing, we can end the call. Hassan, maybe. That's it from me. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining today's call. And if there's anything, you can definitely reach out to me or LinkedIn, or I'm always available for ask anytime. So thank you so much for this. Glad to be here. Thank you. Bye-bye.